paid for my ex-husband's lawyer to sue me. Worth every penny. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, and I knew before opening it that Marcus had finally done it. His lawyer's letterhead, some bargain bin attorney named Jenkins, practically screamed desperation. But it was the content that made me smile for the first time in months. My client seeks to modify existing support obligations due to substantial change in financial circumstances. I read it twice while my coffee went cold, my 7-year-old Emma chattering about her spelling test and 5-year-old Jake building a tower of cereal boxes that would inevitably crash before I finished the letter. Marcus wanted to reduce his already pathetic $800 monthly child support payment. The man who'd been posting Instagram stories from Cabo last month was claiming he could barely afford groceries. "Mommy, you're making that face again," Emma said, looking up from her backpack. "What face, sweetheart?" "The one you make when Daddy calls." She wasn't wrong. That particular combination of rage and exhaustion had become my default expression whenever Marcus entered the picture. I'd been divorced from Marcus Sullivan for 18 months, and in that time, he'd become an artist at financial manipulation. During our marriage, he'd handled all the money, claimed he was protecting me from the stress of finances. What he'd actually been doing was building an empire of hidden accounts, cash businesses, and assets in other people's names. When we divorced, his official income magically dropped from $180,000 a year to $32,000. Suddenly, the man who'd insisted on a $4,000 monthly mortgage was working part-time at his buddy's construction company. The judge had believed him. Or rather, the judge had no choice but to work with the financial documents Marcus provided. My lawyer, fresh out of law school and billing at $200 an hour because that's all I could afford, had warned me that proving hidden assets would require expensive forensic accounting. Money I didn't have. So Marcus walked away paying minimal child support and no alimony, while I juggled 2 jobs to keep the kids in the same school district. He got to play weekend dad, taking Emma and Jake to theme parks and toy stores, while I clipped coupons and explained why we couldn't afford name-brand cereal. But this letter, this beautiful, stupid letter, was about to change everything. I called in sick to my marketing job and drove straight to Marcus's construction site. Found him exactly where I expected, sitting in his brand new F-150, talking on his phone about some real estate deal. He was wearing a Rolex I'd never seen before. When he spotted me, he actually had the audacity to wave. "Sarah." Perfect timing. "I assume you got the letter?" I did. I kept my voice level, even friendly. "You want to reduce child support? Look, I hate doing this, but business has been rough. Jenkins says we have a solid case." He gestured vaguely at the construction site, where exactly 3 workers were visible. "I'm barely breaking even here." "Of course. Times are tough." "Exactly. I knew you'd understand." He leaned against a $60,000 truck, checking his Apple Watch. "Honestly, I'm hoping we can settle this without going to court. Save us both the headache." That's when I realized Marcus was counting on me folding. He figured I couldn't afford to fight, that I'd accept whatever scraps he threw my way rather than risk losing everything in a legal battle. He was half right. I couldn't afford to fight him. But I could afford something much better. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of wine and did something I'd never done before. I researched Marcus. Really researched him. Social media was a goldmine of stupidity. His Instagram showed the Cabo trip, 5 days at a resort that cost $800 a night. I knew because I reverse searched the hotel. There were photos of him at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Portland 2 weeks ago, wine bottles that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. His LinkedIn profile, which he'd apparently forgotten to make private, listed him as principal at Sullivan Development Group. Not employee. Principal. But the real jackpot came when I remembered Marcus's biggest weakness, his ego. I created a fake Facebook profile, generic woman, attractive but not too attractive, interested in real estate investment. It took exactly 4 hours for him to accept my friend request and slide into my DMs. *K Rachel. Thanks for connecting. Always happy to network with fellow investors. What's your portfolio looking like these days? *. By midnight, Rachel had learned that Marcus owned 3 rental properties in Vancouver, was flipping houses in Beaverton, and had just closed on a commercial building in Southeast Portland. He'd sent photos of properties, profit margins, even bank statements to prove his credibility as an investment partner. The man claiming poverty in court documents had made $340,000 in the last 6 months alone. I screenshotted everything, then poured another glass of wine and started making calls. My first call was to Thompson & Associates, the law firm that had represented Marcus's business partner in an unrelated lawsuit last year. I'd remembered the name from Marcus's old paperwork. "I need to speak with someone about a discovery process in family court," I told the receptionist. "Specifically, someone who specializes in finding hidden assets." David Thompson himself called me back within an hour. "Corporate lawyers don't usually work nights unless they smell money. Mrs. Sullivan, I understand you're dealing with some creative bookkeeping from your ex-husband?" "That's putting it mildly. The question is, how much would it cost to prove what he's really worth? For a full forensic accounting, asset search, and discovery process? We'd be looking at $25,000 to $35,000, depending on complexity." My heart sank. "That's not possible for me right now." However, Thompson continued, "If your husband initiates litigation, and we're representing him, we'd be obligated to conduct thorough due diligence. Discovery works both ways in court proceedings. Sometimes the most effective strategy is ensuring your opponent has competent representation." I set down my wine glass. "I'm not sure I follow." "Well, let's say hypothetically your husband hired an attorney who knew how to properly prepare a case. That attorney would need to gather all financial documents, conduct asset searches, review tax returns, interview business associates. Basically, they'd need to build a complete financial picture to argue their case effectively. And if that complete financial picture revealed inconsistencies, then your husband would have a problem. An expensive problem." After I hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen, Marcus's financial bragging displayed in dozens of screenshots. Emma's backpack was on the counter, her homework folder sticking out with a note from her teacher about the upcoming field trip I couldn't afford. Jake's outgrown shoes sat by the door. I'd been putting off replacing them for 2 weeks. Marcus thought he was hunting prey. He had no idea he was about to become it. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Thompson and Associates retainer requirements. Then I called my mom and asked for a loan I'd sworn I'd never request. Some investments are worth going into debt for. The next morning, I called Thompson and Associates and asked to speak with David Thompson directly. Mr. Thompson, this is Sarah Sullivan. We spoke last night about my husband's case. Of course. Have you given more thought to our conversation? I took a deep breath. I want to hire you. Not for me, for him. There was a pause. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I want to pay your retainer to represent my ex-husband Marcus Sullivan. He's planning to sue me for reduced child support, and he needs better legal representation than the discount attorney he's currently using. Mrs. Sullivan, I need to be very clear about the ethical implications here. If you're paying my fees, you would technically be my client, which would create a massive conflict of interest. I couldn't represent your husband in a case against you. My heart started racing. I hadn't thought this through properly. Then how? However, Thompson interrupted, there's nothing stopping you from making an anonymous donation to a legal aid fund that might assist your husband in securing proper representation. And there's certainly nothing preventing you from recommending that he seek more qualified counsel. Would you take the case if he approached you directly? If Mr. Sullivan came to us with legitimate financial documentation supporting his petition, and he could cover our retainer? Absolutely. Family law isn't our specialty, but asset evaluation certainly is. After I hung up, I spent my lunch break crafting the performance of a lifetime. I called Marcus from my car, parked outside Jake's daycare. Marcus, I've been thinking about your letter. Oh yeah? Having second thoughts about fighting this? Actually, yes. But not in the way you think. I kept my voice shaky, defeated. I talked to my lawyer, and she says if this goes to court, they're going to dig into everything. Both of our finances. So? I've got nothing to hide. I know, but Marcus. I do. The silence stretched for 5 seconds. What do you mean? Remember my inheritance from Grandma Rose? The one that came through 6 months after our divorce was final? The $30,000? Yeah, you mentioned it. I closed my eyes, hating myself for what I was about to do. It wasn't $30,000. It was $180,000. I've been hiding most of it because I knew you'd try to get half, even though we were already divorced. Jesus, Sarah. $180,000? I've been living paycheck to paycheck on purpose, making you think I'm broke so you wouldn't suspect anything. But if we go to court, they'll find it. My lawyer says they'll do complete financial discovery on both sides. Wait, back up. You're sitting on $150,000 in hidden money while I'm busting my ass to pay child support? I know how it sounds, but I was protecting the kid's future. Bullshit. You've been lying to me for months. His voice was getting louder. And now you're worried about court because they'll expose you. Marcus, please. If this goes to trial, we'll both get destroyed. My lawyer says I need to hire someone really good, someone who specializes in complex financial cases. She recommended Thompson and Associates. Never heard of them. They're expensive. Like, $15,000 retainer expensive. But she says if we're both going in with high-powered attorneys, maybe we can reach a settlement that protects both our secrets. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. You think I should hire expensive lawyers too? I think you should protect yourself. This Jenkins guy, Marcus, no offense, but he looks like he handles DUIs and small claims cases. If we're really doing this, if we're going nuclear, you need someone who can match their firepower. Thompson and Associates, you said? Yeah, but Marcus, they're not cheap. I'm going into debt just to hire representation. Don't worry about me. I can handle it. Of course he could. Mr. $340,000 in 6 months could definitely handle a legal retainer. Maybe we should both think about this over the weekend? I suggested. This could get really ugly really fast. I'll think about it. But Sarah, when this is over, we're going to have a serious conversation about that inheritance money. I know. I'm sorry. After he hung up, I sat in my car shaking. I just lied to my ex-husband about a fictional inheritance, manipulated him into hiring the exact lawyer I wanted him to hire, and set in motion a legal process that would either secure my children's future or completely backfire and destroy what little financial stability I had left. But when I picked up Jake and saw his shoes held together with duct tape, I knew I'd made the right choice. The call came at 7:23 a.m. on Friday morning. I was making Emma's lunch when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Sarah? This is David Thompson. We have a situation. I nearly dropped the peanut butter jar. What kind of situation? Your ex-husband contacted us yesterday afternoon. He wants to hire us for his case, but there's a complication. During our preliminary consultation, he mentioned that you'd recommended our firm specifically. My stomach dropped. And that's a problem because? Because it suggests coordination between opposing parties. I need to ask you directly, have you had any contact with Mr. Sullivan about his legal representation? I closed my eyes, thankful this wasn't a video call. I may have mentioned your firm name when we discussed the case generally. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm going to be very direct with you. If there's any arrangement, financial or otherwise, between you and your ex-husband regarding his legal representation, I need to know now. Attorney-client privilege doesn't protect fraud or conflicts of interest. There's no arrangement, I said quickly. I just told him he should get better representation than Jenkins. That's all. The pause stretched long enough that Emma looked up from her backpack, eyebrows raised in question. All right, Thompson finally said. Mr. Sullivan is coming in Monday morning to discuss retainer. But Sarah, I'm warning you, if this feels like a setup, I'm walking away from everyone involved. After he hung up, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Emma was staring at me with that too perceptive look she'd inherited from Marcus. Was that about Daddy? Sort of, sweetheart. Just boring grown-up stuff. Are you and Daddy fighting again? I knelt down to her eye level. We're having a disagreement about money. But it's not your job to worry about that, okay? She nodded, but I could see the concern in her 7-year-old eyes. This was exactly what I'd been trying to avoid, my kids caught in the crossfire of their parents' war. That weekend, I did something I'd sworn I wouldn't do. I drove by Marcus's rental properties that he bragged about to fake Rachel. The first address led to a beautiful craftsman in the Laurelhurst neighborhood. I sat across the street for 20 minutes, watching a young family with two small children playing in the front yard. Renters, presumably, paying Marcus mortgage and profit on a house worth at least $750,000. The second property was in the Alberta district, a renovated duplex with a for rent sign displaying a phone number I recognized as Marcus's business line. The listed rent was $3,200 per month. I took photos of everything, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that Marcus really was living a completely different financial reality than the one he presented in court. On Sunday night, Jake crawled into my bed around midnight, complaining about bad dreams. "Daddy was yelling at you in my dream," he whispered against my shoulder. He was really mad. "It was just a dream, baby. Daddy's not mad at Mommy." But even as I said it, I wondered if that was true. Marcus had seemed genuinely angry about my fictional inheritance. What would happen when he discovered I'd lied? Would he drop the case entirely, or would his rage make him push even harder? I was gambling everything on the assumption that his greed and ego would override his caution. That Thompson and associates would uncover enough evidence to bury him before he realized what was happening. But lying awake with Jake's warm body curled against mine, listening to him occasionally whimper in his sleep, I started wondering if I'd miscalculated. Marcus wasn't stupid, manipulative and arrogant, yes, but not stupid. What if he smelled the trap before walking into it? Monday morning arrived with a text from Marcus at 6:47 a.m., *meeting with Thompson today. Hope your new lawyers are worth going broke for. *. I stared at the message while Jake spilled orange juice across the kitchen counter. The smugness practically radiated through the screen. Marcus thought he was calling my bluff, showing up with his own high-powered attorney to scare me into submission. If only he knew he was about to hand Thompson and associates a roadmap to his hidden empire. I was restocking inventory at my part-time retail job when my phone buzzed with Thompson's number. My hands were literally shaking as I stepped into the break room. "Mrs. Sullivan, we've completed the initial consultation with your ex-husband. And? He's hired us. Pay the $15,000 retainer in cash." Thompson's voice carried a note I couldn't quite read. "Actual cash, Sarah. $15,000 in hundreds, like he was buying a used car." My heart started racing. Is that normal? For someone claiming financial hardship? Not even remotely. But it gets more interesting. When I asked about his asset disclosure, he handed me the same documents he filed in your original divorce. Property, none. Savings, $3,400. Monthly income, $2,800. But you know that's not accurate. I know those numbers don't match someone who carries 15 grand in cash. Which means we have a problem. I gripped the phone tighter. What kind of problem? The kind where I'm ethically obligated to build the strongest possible case for my client, even when my client appears to be lying to me. Thompson paused. "Sarah, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you have any direct evidence of your husband's hidden assets?" This was it. The moment where I either trusted my plan or watched it collapse. "Some," I said carefully. "Social media posts, things like that. I'm going to need you to compile everything you have and send it to my office. Today." "Wait, why would I help you build a case against myself?" Thompson's laugh was dry. "Because Marcus Sullivan just hired me to prove he's too poor to pay child support. If he's actually wealthy, then he's committing perjury, and his case falls apart. But if I can't prove he's lying, then he might actually win." After work, I spent 3 hours organizing every screenshot, every photo, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Marcus at the Cabo Resort. The restaurant bills. The property listings. The conversations with fake Rachel where he detailed his real estate empire. But as I compiled everything into a neat digital folder, a horrible thought occurred to me. What if Marcus had been lying to Rachel too? What if the whole real estate portfolio was just him trying to impress a woman? What if those property photos were stolen from legitimate listings, and he was actually telling the truth about being broke? I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at screenshots that suddenly seemed less convincing, when Emma appeared in her pajamas. "Mommy, why are you crying?" I hadn't realized I was. "Just tired, sweetheart." "Is this about the money fight with Daddy?" I pulled her onto my lap, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Emma, do you remember when Daddy lived here? Did he ever seem like he didn't have enough money?" She considered this with 7-year-old seriousness. "Daddy always had money. He bought you that big necklace for your birthday, and he said we could get a swimming pool if we wanted." "When did he say that about the pool?" "Last month, when we went to his apartment. He said after his big deal goes through, we could move to a house with a pool and a trampoline." I set Emma down gently. "What big deal, honey?" "I don't know. Something about buildings. He was talking to Uncle Rick on the phone about selling buildings and making lots of money." Uncle Rick. Marcus's business partner in Sullivan Development Group. 20 minutes after Emma was back in bed, I was parked outside Rick Morrison's house in West Lynn. The lights were on in what looked like a home office, and through the window I could see Rick at a desk covered with architectural plans. I sat there for 45 minutes, trying to work up the courage to knock on his door. Rick had always liked me during the marriage. He'd even apologized privately after the divorce, saying Marcus was handling things badly. But approaching him now felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. *I know what you're doing, Sarah. We need to talk. *. My blood turned to ice as I stared at the text message. The unknown number wasn't one I recognized, but somehow I knew exactly who it was from. Marcus had figured it out. I threw my car into drive and sped home, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds like I was being followed. The rational part of my brain knew Marcus wasn't tracking me, but the paranoid part, the part that remembered how he'd monitored my spending and questioned my whereabouts during our marriage, was in full control. Back home, I triple-checked the locks and peered through the front window. The street was empty except for Mrs. Chen's cat picking through someone's garbage. I was being ridiculous. Marcus didn't even know where Rick lived. Did he? My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number, *coffee tomorrow at 9 a.m. Starbucks on Burnside. Come alone. Asterisk. I stared at the message until my eyes watered. How had he found out? Had Thompson said something? Had I been too obvious during our phone conversation? Or maybe Marcus had always been smarter than I gave him credit for, and I'd just walked straight into his trap. I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house made me jump, the refrigerator humming, the heater kicking on, Jake talking in his sleep down the hall. Around 2 a.m., I crept into his room just to make sure he was okay, then did the same with Emma. They looked so peaceful, completely unaware that their mother had potentially just destroyed their financial future. By 5 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, trying to figure out my next move. I could ignore the text, pretend I never saw it. But Marcus would just escalate. He always did when he didn't get his way. I could call Thompson and confess everything, but that would mean admitting to manipulation and fraud. He'd drop Marcus as a client, and we'd be back where we started, except now Marcus would be furious and suspicious of everything I did. Or I could meet Marcus and try to salvage whatever was left of my plan. At 8:45 a.m., I sat in my car outside the Starbucks, watching through the windows. Marcus was already there, sitting at a corner table with his back to the wall. Old habit from his military days, he always positioned himself where he could see all the exits. He looked relaxed, almost amused, scrolling through his phone with a slight smile. That smile terrified me more than anger would have. I ordered a latte I didn't want and sat down across from him. He didn't look up from his phone for 30 seconds, a power play I remembered from our marriage counseling sessions. Hello, Sarah. Marcus. I kept my voice steady. Nice mysterious text. Very dramatic. He finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes, genuine respect. You almost had me. I mean, really close. The fake inheritance story was brilliant, played right into my assumptions about you being sneaky with money. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to maintain eye contact. I don't know what you're talking about. Thompson and Associates, Sarah. Really? The same firm that represented Rick in his lawsuit last year? Marcus leaned back in his chair. The same firm you somehow knew enough about to recommend they specialize in complex financial cases? I said nothing. So I did a little digging. Turns out David Thompson called you last Wednesday night. 9-minute conversation. Then you called your mother asking for a loan. 23 minutes. He slid his phone across the table, showing me call logs. Amazing what you can find out when you pay attention. You're tracking my phone calls? Our phone calls. Family plan, remember? I never took you off. Marcus smiled wider. The question is, what exactly were you planning to accomplish with this elaborate setup? I stared at Marcus across the coffee shop table, my mind racing through damage control scenarios. He'd caught me, but how much did he actually know versus what he was fishing for? You're right, I said finally. I did recommend Thompson and Associates. Because I wanted you to have good representation. Bullshit. He leaned forward. You wanted me to hire expensive lawyers I couldn't afford, hoping I'd back down from the case entirely. I almost laughed with relief. He still thought I was trying to scare him off, not expose him. Marcus, you paid their retainer in cash. $15,000. If you couldn't afford it, you wouldn't have hired them. Something flickered in his expression, the first crack in his confidence. I've been saving. From your $2,800 monthly income? That's some impressive budgeting. What's your point, Sarah? This was the moment. I could retreat, apologize, maybe salvage some version of my original plan. Or I could push forward and see how far his lies could stretch. My point is that Thompson is about to discover exactly how you've been saving all that money. And when he does, you're going to owe me a lot more than $800 a month. Marcus went very still. What are you talking about? Discovery works both ways, remember? Thompson has to build your case by proving your financial hardship. That means examining your bank records, your business dealings, your property holdings. I don't have any property holdings. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo I'd taken of the Laurelhurst rental. This isn't yours? His jaw tightened. Where did you get that? Google Maps. Amazing what you can find when you search property records. I swiped to the next photo, the Alberta duplex. This one too. Funny thing about rental properties, they leave paper trails. Mortgage documents, insurance policies, tax filings. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting my children. I leaned forward, matching his posture. Did you really think you could hide a real estate portfolio while crying poverty? Thompson's not some bargain bin attorney, Marcus. He's going to find everything. For the first time since I'd known him, Marcus looked genuinely worried. What do you want? I want you to drop the case. And if I don't? Then Thompson and Associates will spend the next 3 months conducting the most thorough financial investigation of your life. They'll interview Rick, examine Sullivan Development Group's books, trace every cash transaction you've made in the past 2 years. I paused. How much back child support do you think you'll owe when they calculate your real income? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at his coffee. When he looked up, I saw the man I'd married, not the manipulator or the financial abuser, but the person I'd once thought I knew. The Laurelhurst house nets about $2,200 a month after expenses, he said quietly. The duplex brings in $3,200, costs about $1,800 to maintain. There are 2 more properties in Gresham, smaller places, maybe $800 profit each. I felt like I was hearing a confession. What about Sullivan Development? We flipped 4 houses last year. My cut was about $180,000, but most of that went back into new projects. He rubbed his forehead. Rick handles the books. I just do the construction management and find properties. So when you told the court you made $32,000 last year, I made $32,000 for Morrison Construction. Everything else goes through different entities. He met my eyes. It's not illegal, Sarah. It's just creative accounting. Creative accounting that's been depriving your children of support they're entitled to. Those kids want for nothing when they're with me. They want for everything when they're with me. The words came out louder than I'd intended, causing other customers to look our way. I lowered my voice. Jake's shoes have holes in them. Emma's class is taking a field trip I can't afford. I work 2 jobs and I still can't pay for their school pictures. Marcus was quiet again. Finally, what do you want me to do? Thompson's already been paid. I can't just fire him without cause. Then let him do his job. Let him find everything, and when he does, we'll settle based on your actual income. I stood up. Or keep lying to him and see how that works out when you're facing perjury charges. I was halfway to the door when Marcus called out, Sarah, wait. I turned back. The family plan thing, I wasn't actually tracking your calls. I just wanted you to think I was. He almost smiled. But you're right about Thompson. He's going to find everything. I know. You planned this whole thing, didn't you? The inheritance story, recommending his firm, pushing me to hire expensive lawyers. You wanted me to pay someone to investigate myself. I didn't answer, but my expression must have given me away. Marcus started laughing. Jesus Christ, Sarah. When did you get so devious? When I got tired of being broke while my kid's father posts vacation photos from Cabo. His laughter stopped abruptly. You saw those? I see everything now, Marcus. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Marcus stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. For a terrifying second, I thought he was calling Thompson to fire him immediately. Instead, he showed me a screen, a text thread with someone named Crystal. You want to see everything? Here's something Thompson's going to find real quick. He scrolled through messages that made my stomach drop. Photos of a woman in a bikini on what looked like a yacht. Asterisk, can't wait for our Bahamas trip next month, baby. Thanks for booking the penthouse suite. Asterisk. You're kidding me. I sat back down, my legs suddenly unsteady. You have a girlfriend you're spending money on while claiming you can't afford child support. Crystal's not just a girlfriend. She's my business partner. Real estate agent who finds our flip properties. Marcus pocketed his phone, but the damage was done. The Bahamas thing is a real estate investment conference. A real estate investment conference at a penthouse suite in the Bahamas. It's a legitimate business expense. I started laughing, the kind of hysterical laughter that bubbles up when you realize the person you're dealing with is even worse than you imagined. Marcus, do you hear yourself? You're taking your girlfriend/business partner on luxury vacations while telling a judge you can barely afford groceries. Sarah, keep your voice down. No. I stood up again, no longer caring who was listening. Do you have any idea what Thompson's going to do when he finds those text messages? When he sees the credit card bills for Crystal's penthouse suite? Marcus's confidence was evaporating in real time. Look, maybe we can work something out. Oh, we're way past working something out. I pulled up Thompson's number on my phone. You know what? I think I should call your lawyer right now. Give him a heads up about Crystal and the Bahamas trip. Professional courtesy. Sarah, don't. Marcus reached across the table toward my phone. Please. Please? I held the phone out of his reach. Marcus Sullivan said please? Are we having the same conversation where you've been hiding hundreds of thousands of dollars while your children wear shoes held together with duct tape? It's not hundreds of thousands. Then how much is it? I hit speaker and started dialing Thompson's number. Let's call him together and you can explain exactly how much money you've been hiding. 60. Marcus hissed, grabbing my wrist. Maybe 70,000 in liquid assets, plus the property equity. But most of it's tied up in current projects. I ended the call before it connected, but kept the phone in my hand. 60,000 that you claimed didn't exist in court. It's complicated business accounting. It's fraud, Marcus. And now your fancy lawyer is going to document every penny of it. I finally sat down, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Here's what's going to happen. Thompson's going to spend the next few weeks building your case by investigating your finances. He's going to find the rental properties, the business profits, Crystal's vacation expenses, all of it. And then? Then he's going to call you into his office and explain that filing false financial documents is perjury. That lying about your income to avoid child support is contempt of court. That he can't ethically represent someone who's been committing fraud. Marcus was pale now. He can't just drop me. I paid his retainer. Oh, he'll keep the retainer. But he'll also be obligated to withdraw from the case and potentially report your perjury to the court. I smiled. Unless, of course, you want to amend your financial disclosure voluntarily before he files anything official. The silence stretched between us while Marcus processed what I'd just laid out. Around us, the coffee shop buzzed with normal people having normal conversations about normal problems. Not elaborate schemes involving hidden assets and legal manipulation. Finally, Marcus spoke. You orchestrated all of this. The fake inheritance, Thompson's firm, pushing me to fight harder. You wanted me to hire the one lawyer who would definitely catch me lying. I wanted you to pay what you owe your children. By destroying me financially. By exposing what you were already hiding. I stood up for the final time. The only difference is now it's going to cost you $15,000 to learn what I already knew. I walked out of that Starbucks feeling like I'd just won the lottery and been hit by a truck simultaneously. Marcus knew what I'd done, but he was trapped by his own greed and lies. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. He'd paid $15,000 for the privilege of being investigated by the best asset discovery attorney in Portland. But my victory lap lasted exactly 18 hours. Tuesday evening, I was helping Emma with her math homework when my phone rang. David Thompson's name on the caller ID made my stomach clench. Mrs. Sullivan, we have a significant problem. I stepped into the hallway, away from the kids. What kind of problem? The kind where your ex-husband just fired us and demanded his retainer back. My heart stopped. Can he do that? Unfortunately, yes. We hadn't filed any official documents yet, so there's no conflict preventing him from withdrawing. Thompson's voice was clipped, professional. But Sarah, before he left our office, he said something interesting. He told me to ask Sarah how she knew so much about our firm's specialties. I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall. What did you tell him? I told him attorney-client communications are privileged. But I'm telling you, this feels orchestrated. If I find out you've been manipulating this situation, there could be serious ethical violations involved. After Thompson hung up, I sat on my hallway floor, back against the wall, trying to process what had just happened. Marcus had outplayed me. Instead of letting Thompson discover his hidden assets, he'd cut his losses and walked away. Now I was out the money I borrowed from my mother. Marcus was suspicious of every move I made, and we were back to square one. Except it was worse than square one, because now Marcus knew I was actively working against him. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Round 2 goes to me. But this was fun. When do we play again? Asterisk. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. Instead, I googled Marcus Sullivan Development Group and started scrolling through results I'd somehow missed before. The third result made my blood freeze. It was a news article from the Portland Business Journal, dated just 6 weeks ago. Sullivan Development Group secures $2.3 million commercial property deal. The article included a photo of Marcus and Rick Morrison standing in front of a large building with a sold banner. Marcus was quoted extensively about their aggressive expansion plans and 7-figure revenue projections for the coming year. 7 figures. He told me $60,000 in liquid assets, but he was publicly bragging about 7-figure revenue. I screenshotted everything, then kept digging. The Business Journal's website had an entire archive of articles mentioning Sullivan Development Group. Property acquisitions, construction contracts, even a piece about Marcus being named Young Entrepreneur of the Year by the Portland Chamber of Commerce 8 months ago. The award ceremony photo showed him in a tuxedo, accepting a crystal plaque. Standing next to him in a red evening gown was a blonde woman I recognized from the text messages, Crystal. But it was the caption that made my hands shake. Marcus Sullivan, accompanied by his fiancée Crystal Rodriguez, accepts the Young Entrepreneur Award. Fiancée. Not business partner. Not girlfriend. Fiancée. I was still staring at the photo when Emma appeared in the hallway. Mommy, are you okay? You look sick. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just reading something boring for work. Is it about Daddy again? Sometimes Emma's perceptiveness was startling. Why would you think that? Because you get the same face when you read things about Daddy that you get when Jake throws up. She sat down next to me on the floor. Are you and Daddy going to fight more now? I put my arm around her, pulling her close. We're trying to work out some grown-up problems. It's not your job to worry about it. But I do worry. Jake does too. He asked me yesterday if Daddy was going to stop visiting us. My heart clenched. Why would he think that? Because Tommy at school said when his parents fought about money, his dad moved far away and only calls sometimes now. I tilted Emma's chin up so she was looking at me. Listen to me very carefully. No matter what happens with the grown-up problems, Daddy loves you and Jake very much. He's not going anywhere, okay? She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her 7-year-old eyes. After I tucked both kids into bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine and Marcus's public success story spread across my laptop screen. Young Entrepreneur of the Year. 7-figure revenue projections. A secret fiancé who apparently shared his luxury lifestyle. And here I was, clipping coupons and explaining to my children why we couldn't afford the field trip. My phone rang. Unknown number again, but this time I was expecting it. Enjoying your research? Marcus's voice was smug. The Portland Business Journal was very informative. Congratulations on your engagement, by the way. A pause. You saw that. Young Entrepreneur of the Year. 7-figure revenue. It's amazing how much your financial situation has improved since you testified under oath about making $32,000 a year. Sarah, what exactly do you want here? I want you to stop lying to courts about money you don't have while you're planning a wedding I'm sure will cost more than I make in 2 years. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if he'd hung up. Finally, Crystal and I postponed the wedding. Happy now? Postponed or called off? I asked, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Postponed. Look, this whole thing has gotten out of hand. Maybe we should meet and figure out a reasonable solution. I almost laughed. Marcus, 24 hours ago you were gloating about winning round 2. Now you want to negotiate? Things change. What things? Another long pause. Thompson called me this morning. Even though I fired his firm, he said he has an ethical obligation to report potential perjury if he becomes aware of it through his preliminary investigation. My heart started racing. What did you tell him? I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. But Sarah, he mentioned the Portland Business Journal article. He'd already found it. Marcus's voice was tighter now, less confident. He said if I refiled my financial disclosure without correcting any oversights, he'd consider the matter closed. I set down my wine glass, afraid I might drop it. So correct them. It's not that simple. If I amend my financial disclosure now, it's basically admitting I lied the first time. The court could hold me in contempt, order back support calculations based on my real income for the past 18 months. Good. Sarah, we're talking about potentially $60,000 or $70,000 in back support. Plus penalties. We're talking about money you should have been paying all along while I worked 2 jobs to keep our children housed and fed. What if we work out a private arrangement? I increase the monthly payments voluntarily, no court involvement. Say, $1,500 a month instead of $800? I stared at my laptop screen, at the photo of Marcus in his tuxedo accepting his entrepreneurship award. $1,500. That's almost double what I'm paying now. Marcus, if the court recalculates based on your real income, you could be looking at $3,000 a month in current support, plus all that back support you mentioned. I can't afford $3,000 a month. Then you shouldn't have spent the weekend in Cabo while your son wore shoes held together with duct tape. The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on my front door. I checked the clock, 9:47 p.m. Nobody knocked on my door at 9:47 p.m. unless something was wrong. Marcus, I have to go. Someone's at my door. At this hour? Sarah, don't answer it. I walked to the front window and peered through the blinds. A woman I didn't recognize stood on my porch, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a nervous expression. Marcus, is Crystal about 5'6", blonde, drives a white BMW? What? How do you, Sarah, don't open that door. But I was already unlocking it. Crystal Rodriguez, Marcus's secret fiancée and business partner, looked even younger in person than she had in the photos. Maybe 28, with the kind of effortless beauty that belonged on real estate billboards. Sarah? I'm Crystal. I think we need to talk. I held up my phone. Marcus, your fiancé is here. Put me on speaker, he said quickly. Crystal shook her head. Actually, don't. What I have to say is for you, not him. I studied her face, looking for manipulation or deceit, but saw only exhaustion. Come in. She stepped into my living room, glancing around at Emma's art projects taped to the walls and Jake's toy car scattered across the coffee table. I broke up with Marcus this afternoon, she said without preamble. And I brought you something I think you'll want to see. She pulled a thick manila folder from her oversized purse. Complete financial records for Sullivan Development Group. Bank statements, property deeds, tax returns, profit and loss statements for the past 3 years. My phone was still connected to Marcus, and I could hear him shouting my name, but I couldn't take my eyes off the folder. Why? I asked Crystal. Because I just found out he has 2 kids he's been lying about supporting. And because some of the money he's been hiding from you? He stole it from our business to pay for those Cabo trips and fancy dinners. Her voice hardened. Turns out Marcus Sullivan lies to everyone, not just ex-wives. I hung up on Marcus and stared at Crystal, who was still holding the manila folder like it contained nuclear secrets. Through my phone, I could hear it buzzing repeatedly with incoming calls that I ignored. You said he stole from your business? Crystal's jaw tightened. $53,000 over the past 8 months. Money that was supposed to go toward our next property acquisition. Instead, it funded his lifestyle while he cried poverty to you and me both. She opened the folder, revealing bank statements with highlighted transactions. Look at this, March 15th, he transferred $12,000 from our business account to his personal checking. 2 days later, there's a charge to that resort in Cabo for exactly $11,800. I studied the papers, my hands trembling slightly. He told you he was broke too? Not broke, but cash flow tight. Said all our profits were tied up in ongoing projects. Crystal laughed bitterly. Meanwhile, he's booking penthouse suites in the Bahamas and buying Rolexes. I didn't figure it out until I started preparing our quarterly tax documents last week. My phone kept buzzing. Marcus was getting desperate. There's more, Crystal continued, flipping to a property deed. Remember that duplex in Alberta you probably found online? It's not in Marcus's name. It's in mine. He convinced me to buy it 18 months ago, said it was for tax optimization. I've been managing it, collecting rent, paying expenses, while he pockets half the profits as his consulting fee. The room felt like it was spinning. How much money are we talking about total? Based on these records? His actual annual income is probably closer to $220,000. Maybe $250,000 in a good year. She pulled out a tax return marked draft, do not file. This is what our accountant prepared based on the real numbers, before Marcus decided to get creative with his personal filing. I sank into my couch, staring at numbers that represented everything I'd suspected but couldn't prove. Emma's field trip money. Jake's new shoes. The dental work I'd been postponing. All of it was here, documented in black and white. Why are you giving this to me? I asked. This destroys him, but it probably destroys your business too. Crystal sat down across from me, looking exhausted. Because I have a 6-year-old daughter from my previous marriage. Her dad disappeared when she was 2, just stopped paying support and moved to another state. I know what it's like to wonder how you're going to buy groceries while your ex posts vacation photos. My phone buzzed with a text, * Sarah, please don't listen to whatever Crystal is telling you. She's lying because I broke up with her. *. I showed Crystal the message. She snorted. I broke up with him, and I can prove that too. She pulled out her own phone, showing me a text thread from earlier that day. * Marcus, I know about the missing money. We're done. Business and personal. Don't contact me again. *. His response was a string of increasingly frantic messages, culminating in, * Crystal, you don't understand the full situation. Sarah is trying to destroy me financially. I can explain everything. *. He's been playing us against each other, Crystal said. Telling you he's broke, telling me the business is struggling, while he lives like a king on money that belonged to both of us. I looked at the folder again, at 3 years of documented lies and financial manipulation. What happens to Sullivan Development Group now? I'm dissolving the partnership. Taking my properties and my clients, starting fresh. She stood up, smoothing down her jeans. But first, I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow to discuss recovering the money Marcus stole from our business accounts. The same money he should have been paying in child support. Exactly. Crystal headed toward the door, then turned back. Sarah, I need you to know, I had no idea he was lying about supporting his kids. If I'd known, I would have done this months ago. After she left, I sat alone in my living room with the folder, listening to my phone buzz constantly with Marcus's increasingly desperate calls. Finally, I turned it off entirely and spread the documents across my coffee table. Bank statements showing mysterious transfers. Property deeds in Crystal's name generating income Marcus never reported. Business contracts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tax returns, the real ones and the fake ones he'd filed. It was everything I'd needed and more than I dared hope for. But as I sat there surrounded by evidence of Marcus's lies, I realized something that made my stomach drop. I was no longer the only one who knew what he'd been hiding. Crystal had lawyers now. The business partnership was dissolving publicly. Thompson and Associates already suspected perjury. Marcus wasn't just caught, he was cornered. And cornered animals were dangerous. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of someone pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. The kind of aggressive hammering that meant either emergency or rage, and given the events of the past few days, I was betting on rage. Sarah. Open the fucking door. I know you're awake. Marcus's voice carried through the walls, loud enough that I worried he'd wake the kids. I grabbed my phone, 23 missed calls since I'd turned it off, plus a string of text messages that escalated from pleading to fury over the course of 3 hours. * We need to talk. Now. *. Crystal told me she gave you our business files. *. You have no idea what you've done. *. Asterisk, this isn't just about me anymore. Other people are going to get hurt. Asterisk. The pounding stopped abruptly, replaced by the sound of Marcus walking around to the back of the house. I heard him testing the sliding door to the patio, locked, thankfully, then the gate latched to the backyard. I crept down the hallway and checked on Emma and Jake. Still asleep, though Emma was stirring slightly. If Marcus woke them up with his tantrum, I was calling the police. My phone buzzed with another text. Asterisk, I can see your car in the driveway. Stop pretending you're not home. Asterisk. I moved to the front window and peered through the blinds. Marcus was standing in my driveway, hands on his hips, staring at the house like he was planning his next move. Even in the dim street light, I could see the tension in his posture. Another text. Asterisk, Rick's lawyer called tonight. Crystal's trying to seize our business accounts. She's claiming I embezzled $50,000. Asterisk. I typed back. Asterisk, did you? Asterisk. Asterisk, it's more complicated than that. We need to talk before this gets worse. Asterisk. Asterisk, go home, Marcus. We can talk tomorrow. Asterisk. Asterisk, tomorrow Thompson is meeting with a family court judge about my case. If he shows them Crystal's files, I'm looking at contempt charges and potential criminal fraud. Asterisk. I stared at that message, my heart racing. I'd wanted Marcus exposed, but criminal charges felt like a line I hadn't meant to cross. That's not my problem, I typed back. Asterisk, it is if you want me to be able to pay any child support at all. Sarah, they could freeze all my assets pending investigation. That means zero money for the kids until this gets resolved. Asterisk. Through the window, I watched him pace back and forth across my driveway, phone pressed to his ear. Probably leaving more voicemails for Crystal, who was smart enough not to answer. There's something else, came his next text. Asterisk, something Crystal doesn't know that's going to come out in the investigation. Asterisk. Against my better judgment, I found myself typing, asterisk what? Asterisk. Asterisk, the business loan we used to buy the Alberta duplex. I signed both our names, but Crystal never actually saw the paperwork. She doesn't know she's personally liable for $340,000 if the partnership dissolves badly. Asterisk. I felt sick. Asterisk, Marcus, please tell me you didn't forge her signature. Asterisk. The typing dots appeared and disappeared several times before his response came through. Asterisk, I need to explain this in person. 5 minutes. Just let me explain. Asterisk. I looked down the hallway toward my children's rooms, then back at Marcus pacing in my driveway like a caged animal. Crystal had trusted me with those files because she thought she was helping another single mother fight for her kids' support. She had no idea she might be about to lose her house over a loan she never actually signed. 5 minutes, I texted back. Asterisk, front porch. You don't come inside. Asterisk. I grabbed a jacket and stepped outside, leaving the door cracked behind me so I could hear if the kids woke up. Marcus immediately started walking toward me, but I held up my hand. Stay right there. Talk. He stopped at the bottom of my porch steps, and even in the dim light, I could see how rattled he was. His hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled like he'd been wearing them for days. Crystal's going to lose everything, he said without preamble. Her house, her business, maybe even custody of her daughter if she can't prove she didn't know about the financial irregularities. Because you forged her signature. Because I made decisions that protected our business without explaining all the implications. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. Sarah, I never meant for it to go this far. What exactly did you think would happen when you decided to hide $250,000 in income while your children wore second-hand shoes? I thought you'd take whatever I gave you and be grateful for it. The words exploded out of him, loud enough that Mrs. Chen's porch light flicked on across the street. He lowered his voice. I thought I could keep everyone happy without anyone getting hurt. Everyone except Emma and Jake. I bought them things. I took them places when they visited. You bought them toys to assuage your guilt while I couldn't afford their dental cleanings. I wrapped my jacket tighter against the November cold. And now you're telling me Crystal's going to lose her house because of your lies? Marcus climbed one step closer, and I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before, genuine fear. Sarah, if this goes to criminal court, if they start investigating everything, it's not just going to hurt Crystal and me. Sullivan Development Group has contracts with the city, federal housing grants. If they find financial irregularities, it could bring down legitimate businesses that employ real people. How many people, Marcus? 15 employees between our company and our subcontractors. Plus their families. He took another step up. Is your revenge worth destroying all of that? The question hit harder than I'd expected. I'd been so focused on getting justice for Emma and Jake that I hadn't considered the broader consequences of exposing Marcus's financial web. This isn't revenge, I said finally. This is consequences. Then help me minimize them. Call Crystal, tell her you'll testify that the business records show I was actually paying adequate support all along. In exchange, I'll voluntarily increase payments to $3,000 a month going forward. I stared at him. You want me to lie under oath to protect you from the consequences of your lies? I want you to think about what's best for everyone involved, including our kids. Our kids would be best served by their father not being a criminal. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying my face in the porch light. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, more like the man I'd married. Sarah, I'm scared. Really scared. And I don't know how to fix this without destroying everything. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of the old sympathy, the instinct to protect him that had kept me silent about so many things during our marriage. Then I thought about Jake asking why we couldn't afford the school pictures, and the feeling disappeared entirely. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from your business partner to fund your vacation lifestyle, I said. Go home, Marcus. Figure out how to fix your own mess. I was reaching for my door handle when he said the words that made my blood freeze. What if I told you there's evidence that could make you look just as guilty as me? I turned back to face Marcus, my hand frozen on the door handle. What are you talking about? His expression had shifted again, less desperate, more calculating. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something that looked almost like relief. The loan I borrowed against my mother's house to pay your divorce attorney. Remember that? $15,000 because you couldn't afford decent representation? My stomach started to sink. That was a gift. You said it was guilt money for hiding assets during the divorce. I never said it was a gift, Sarah. I said I was helping you out. Marcus climbed another step, now just 3 feet away from me. I have the promissory note you signed. 7% interest, payments deferred until your financial situation improved. I never signed a promissory note. You signed a lot of papers that day. Remember? Settlement documents, custody agreements, financial disclosures. His smile was cold now. Amazing how easy it is to slip an extra page into a stack when someone's emotional and not reading carefully. I felt like I was going to vomit. You're lying. Check your divorce files, Sarah. Page 47 of your document packet. Personal loan agreement between Marcus Sullivan and Sarah Sullivan, $15,000 principal, renewable terms subject to borrower's income changes. My mind raced back to that awful day in the lawyer's office, signing paper after paper while trying not to cry in front of the mediator. Marcus hovering helpfully, pointing to signature lines, reassuring me that it was all standard language. Even if that's true, what does it matter? It's a civil loan, not. It matters because you've been in default for 18 months. And under Oregon law, attempting to manipulate court proceedings to avoid legitimate debt obligations can be considered fraud. Marcus pulled out his phone. Want to see the documentation I have of your little scheme with Thompson and Associates? He showed me screenshots of our text conversations, call logs showing my contact with the law firm, even a photo he must have taken from across the coffee shop yesterday, me sliding documents across the table to Crystal. Marcus, you can't prove I did anything illegal. I can prove you conspired with Crystal to manipulate my legal representation. I can prove you recommended specific attorneys while hiding material information about our financial relationship. He scrolled through more evidence. And I can prove you've been in violation of a signed loan agreement while simultaneously claiming financial hardship. Mrs. Chen's porch light flickered off, but I barely noticed. My entire carefully constructed plan was crumbling in real time. What do you want? I asked quietly. Crystal backs off the embezzlement claims. You return those business files. We settle everything privately, I'll pay $2,000 a month in child support, and we'll call the loan even. And if I don't? Then tomorrow morning, I walk into Thompson's office with evidence that both you and Crystal have been manipulating these proceedings through fraud and conspiracy. You'll both be facing criminal charges, and I'll be the victim who was trying to pay fair support all along. I stared at Marcus, seeing clearly for the first time how thoroughly I'd been outplayed. Even in his desperation, even caught red-handed with hidden assets, he'd managed to turn the tables. You planned this, I realized. The loan document, keeping records of our conversations. You knew eventually I'd try to fight back. I planned for contingencies. It's what good businessmen do. Marcus started backing down the steps. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to decide. Crystal's meeting with her lawyer at 10, make sure she knows what's at stake. He was halfway to his truck when I called out, Marcus, what about Emma and Jake? What happens to them when this all comes out? He turned back, and for just a moment, his mask slipped completely. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to play games with people who are better at it than you are. I stood on my porch for 20 minutes after Marcus drove away, my mind spinning through increasingly desperate scenarios. Inside, I could hear Jake crying, probably a nightmare. I wanted to go comfort him, but I couldn't make my legs move. Marcus had outmaneuvered me completely. The loan document I supposedly signed, the evidence of my manipulation, even Crystal's involvement, he'd turned everything into a weapon against us. My phone buzzed. A text from Crystal, ** Marcus has been calling me nonstop. Says you have something to tell me. What's going on? **. I stared at the message, trying to figure out how to explain that helping me might have just destroyed her life. That the business files she'd given me in good faith were now evidence in Marcus's counter-narrative where we were the criminals and he was the victim. **. Can you meet me for coffee in the morning? 8 a.m.? It's complicated. **. Sarah, you're scaring me. Just tell me what Marcus said. **. Jake's crying was getting louder. I could hear Emma's voice too now, trying to comfort her little brother. I needed to go inside, but first I had to warn Crystal about what she was walking into. *. He says you're personally liable for business loans you never signed. And he has evidence that we conspired to manipulate his legal representation. *. My phone rang immediately. Crystal's voice was tight with panic. What do you mean I never signed? I signed loan documents for the Alberta property. Marcus claims he forged your signature on a $340,000 loan. Says you could lose everything when the partnership dissolves. That's impossible. I have copies of everything I signed. But even as she said it, I could hear the doubt creeping into her voice. Don't I? Crystal, there's more. He has documentation of our conversations, photos from yesterday. He's claiming we committed fraud by manipulating his choice of legal representation. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Crystal? Are you there? I'm here. I'm just trying to understand how helping you get child support for your kids turned into me facing criminal charges. Her voice cracked. Sarah, I have a daughter. If I lose my house, my business, if there are criminal charges, I could lose custody. That was the moment I truly understood what I'd done. In my desperation to beat Marcus at his own game, I dragged an innocent woman into a trap that could destroy her family. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I never meant for this to happen. But it is happening. So what do we do now? Before I could answer, Emma appeared in the doorway behind me, rubbing her eyes. Mommy? Jake's scared and he wants you. And why are you talking outside in the dark? I turned to face my daughter, 7 years old, standing in her unicorn pajamas, worried about her little brother and confused by her mother's bizarre behavior. This was supposed to be about protecting her and Jake, about securing their future. Instead, I'd created a situation where they might watch both parents face criminal charges. I'm coming, sweetheart. Just finishing a phone call. Emma nodded and patted back inside, but not before I saw the concern in her expression. The same look she'd been wearing for months, a child trying to navigate her parents' chaos. Crystal, I need to call you back. My kids need me. Sarah, wait. What are we going to do? I can't go to that lawyer meeting tomorrow without knowing where we stand. I looked through my front door at Emma helping Jake back into bed, at the living room scattered with their toys and homework, at the life I'd built for us that was now hanging by a thread. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm going to figure it out. After I hung up, I went inside and spent an hour getting Jake settled. He'd had a dream about monsters, he said. Big scary monsters that were trying to hurt Mommy. Sometimes kids understand more than we think they do. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with Crystal's files spread in front of me, cross-referencing every document against Marcus's claims. By 4 a.m., I'd found what I was looking for. The loan agreement Marcus claimed I'd signed? Page 47 of my divorce packet was actually a standard custody modification form, something completely different. But more importantly, I found something Marcus didn't know I had, copies of the original business incorporation documents for Sullivan Development Group, including Crystal's actual signature on file with the Secretary of State. The signature on the $340,000 loan document wasn't even close. At 6 a.m., I called Detective Morrison from the Financial Crimes Unit. Yes, the same last name as Marcus's business partner Rick, his older brother, as it turned out, and someone who'd been watching Sullivan Development Group's rapid expansion with professional curiosity. Detective Morrison? This is Sarah Sullivan. I have evidence of loan fraud, business embezzlement, and perjury that I think you'll want to see. By 7:30 a.m., Crystal and I were sitting in Detective Morrison's office with the business files spread across his conference table. His expression grew darker with each document we showed him. Ladies, what you're describing isn't just family court drama. This is organized financial fraud. He held up the loan document with Crystal's forged signature. And this particular crime carries a mandatory minimum sentence in Oregon. Crystal looked pale. What happens now? Now you both file reports, turn over all evidence, and let us handle Marcus Sullivan properly. Detective Morrison smiled grimly. And Ms. Rodriguez, you'll be pleased to know that forged loan documents are null and void. You can't be held liable for debts you never actually agreed to. At 8:47 a.m., just 13 minutes before Marcus's ultimatum deadline, Detective Morrison called him. Mr. Sullivan? This is Detective Morrison with Portland Financial Crimes. I need you to come down to the station this morning to discuss some irregularities in your business documentation. I couldn't hear Marcus's response, but I saw Detective Morrison smile. Sir, this isn't optional. We have evidence of loan fraud, signature forgery, and perjury. You can come voluntarily, or we can send officers to collect you. 3 hours later, Marcus was arrested on 6 felony charges. The local news ran his mugshot alongside the headline, Young Entrepreneur of the Year charged with financial fraud. But the real victory came 2 weeks later, when I received a call from the district attorney's office. As part of Marcus's plea agreement to avoid prison time, he was required to make full financial disclosure and pay 18 months of back child support, calculated at his actual income level. The check was for $127,000. That evening, I took Emma and Jake to the toy store, not for a quick visit, but to actually buy the things they'd been wanting for months. Emma picked out art supplies for her room. Jake chose a bicycle with training wheels and a helmet covered in dinosaurs. As we loaded everything into my car, Jake looked up at me with his serious 5-year-old expression. Mommy, are the monsters gone now? I knelt down to his eye level, thinking about Marcus in handcuffs, about Crystal's relieved tears when she learned her house was safe, about the college funds I could finally start for both kids. Yeah, baby. The monsters are gone. Marcus served 8 months in minimum security prison and lost his business license. He now pays $3,200 monthly in child support from his job managing a hardware store, every penny verified and monitored by the court. Crystal started her own real estate company and sends my kids Christmas cards every year. And me? I quit my second job, enrolled in night school for my MBA, and learned something valuable. Sometimes the best investment you can make is in a really good lawyer. Even if you have to trick your ex-husband into paying for it.